You know this sound. It's a C major scale. It's stable, it's familiar, it feels resolved. But what happens if we just change a few notes? All of a sudden, the entire mood shifts. We've just stepped into the world of the blues. And it's got this ache to it, right? It's full of tension, and it tells a story all its own.
So you gotta ask, where did this completely unique sound even come from? This has been a huge debate for decades. Did the blues scale kind of just happen? A natural evolution from a collision of cultures? Or was it something more deliberate? A calculated act of musical rebellion against the established rules?
All right, let's get into it. Because to really understand a rebellion, you first have to know what it was rebelling against. And in music, that establishment is Western harmony, a whole set of rules that's been running the show for centuries, from classical music all the way to modern pop songs.
Now, at the very heart of that system is this thing called equal temperament. The easiest way to think about it is like a perfect ruler for music. It takes an octave and slices it into 12 perfectly equal, predictable steps. Those are the keys on a piano. The whole point is to create sounds that are orderly, clean, and always feel resolved.
And right here is where you can see the clash. Over on the left, you've got your standard C major scale. Clean, simple. But on the right, the C blues scale throws in these wrenches. These are the famous blue notes. These are the troublemakers. They're the ones that create all that tension and give the scale its iconic, soulful character.
So where on earth did those notes come from? Well, to start answering our big question, evolution or rebellion, we've got to go back. Way back across the Atlantic to the musical traditions of West Africa. This is the evolution side of the story. The key idea to get your head around here is microtonality. See, West African singing was never stuck to the 12 rigid notes of a piano. It lived in the spaces between the notes, in all the little slides and bends of the human voice. When enslaved people were brought to America, they carried that fluid sense of pitch with them. So those blue notes, they weren't wrong notes. They were actually an attempt to find those familiar in-between sounds on these new Western instruments. Yeah, this whole musical heritage was just fundamentally different from what was happening in Europe. It was all about complex rhythms and fluid pitches, not strict, rigid harmony. So, in the brutal reality of the Jim Crow South, just holding on to those sounds, refusing to correct them to fit neatly into a major or minor box, that became a powerful act of cultural preservation. It was a sonic connection to a home and a history that was actively being erased. But this is where the story takes a turn. Because what started out as an organic, almost instinctual preservation of sound, it slowly morphed into something much more conscious. The scale wasn't just an echo of the past anymore. It became an intentional statement about the present. You can literally trace the journey. It begins as this organic cultural memory from West Africa. Then, under the crushing pressure of the Jim Crow South, it gets forged into a powerful tool for identity. And by the time you get to the Delta Blues era, its use is an open and intentional rejection of the musical and cultural establishment.
I mean, the contrast couldn't be more stark. The Western scale stood for order, the church, the polite society that was oppressing them. The blues scale, on the other hand, embraced tension, ambiguity. It was the sound of the counterculture. In fact, the white establishment called it devil's music for that exact reason, because it refused to resolve nicely. In the blues, the tension is the whole point, because it reflected a life where resolution was never guaranteed.
Okay, so we've got the cultural evidence for rebellion. It's pretty compelling, but is there a theoretical smoking gun? Like a specific musical choice that's so subversive it could only be intentional? Oh yeah, the answer is a resounding yes. So Western harmony has this one really basic, almost binary rule. A chord is generally either major, which our ears hear as happy, or it's minor, which we hear as sad. It's one or the other, that's it. Simple.
And this is the question the blues asks. What if you could just shatter that binary? What if a sound could refuse to be categorized and be both happy and sad, right and wrong, all at the exact same time?
And here it is. This is the smoking gun. It's brilliant. A standard happy major chord is built with 3 notes. Blues musicians would play that happy chord, but then they would sing or play the sad version of that middle note, that E-flat blue note, right on top of it. What this does is create a state of permanent harmonic ambiguity. It's not happy, it's not sad, it's something else. This is a direct theoretical challenge. It's a refusal to be defined by Western rules. This is rebellion coded right into the music itself. So, where does that leave us? Let's bring it all home. What is the legacy of this quiet sonic rebellion? Well, it turns out it was one of the most successful musical insurgencies in all of history.
So the verdict on our big question, evolution or rebellion, is that it's both. The blues scale didn't start as a rebellion, but it absolutely became one. It began as the organic survival of African musical DNA, and then, through the fire of history, it was forged into this incredibly sophisticated, intentional statement of identity and defiance. It was a powerful refusal to assimilate.
And this scale, born from resistance, didn't just survive, it conquered. It ended up colonizing the very tradition it was subverting. The blues gave birth to jazz. Jazz gave birth to rock and roll. Rock and roll laid the groundwork for hip-hop. Think about it. Almost all of the popular music we listen to today owes its entire existence to the DNA of this one rebellious scale.
Which really just leaves us with this one last thought. The next time you hear a guitarist bend a string to hit that soulful, aching blue note, you're not just hearing a sound. You're hearing a direct line to a long, powerful history of defiance. Because music is never just a collection of notes. It's a map of a people's history, their pain, their joy, and their unending struggle for autonomy.